is an eligible voter, qualified voter, qualified voter, eligible voter. You need that change.
I don't hear anything.
We already know.
Test, test. Can you hear me?
No, eligible voter.
No, because we looked at it, they were last one that we looked at was. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I don't hear anything. Yeah, I'm not hearing anything.
Just tested my speakers. Testing my microphone. Speaking stuff right now. Videos.
But it wasn't picking me up when I was speaking to it.
No. No. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, there goes. Maybe.
Saying sister, we've been out of work.
Said the host would like to unmute us. We can't hear anything on our end. Should I type it in? I think I should send that message.
White pled guilty to participation. Mr. White has since satisfied all court-ordered fines and fees.
Thank you. Dyersburg Police Department, or can you hear us this morning? Or you pray? Oh, you're in person. Thank you. Can you identify yourself?
Yes, sir. Lieutenant Kenny Jowers and Officer Angus Rob White.
Okay. Can you go over what your pre-employment investigation was in this matter?
Yes, sir. Mr. White was very forthcoming and told us right off the bat before he even applied and phone conversations with me about his prior history, which has already been expunged with these two remaining. These are in the midst of one in Montgomery County is in the midst of being expunged. At the time, he presented to us proof that he had gone through some issues while first joining the United States military, had abused alcohol and had gone through a substance abuse program of his own volition. Had graduated that program and did serve the country honorably in the United States Special Forces for the United States Army. We did the background, met some quite interesting people, past acting Secretary of Defense who was a personal reference for it. And it was confirmed. We believe that he is going to be a fine addition to this department once approved by this commission.
Any questions from commissioners?
I have a question.
You're so recognized.
These, DUI, was that on post?
Yes, sir.
Both of these? And the one in Montgomery County was off post?
It was off post. It was after the deployment.
The other one before Benning was on post,
Yes, sir.
and it was a post issue.
Yes, sir. I was arrested by the MPs, released to my first sergeant, and after that, I had to do mandatory, back in the day, it was called ASAP, alcohol and substance abuse program, for 2.5 weeks. Once I passed that, I got a certificate. And the second offense that I have that's on the docket, I also put myself through the Army rehab program out of Fort Worth, Georgia, and I do have a certificate of completion. And since then, I've not touched alcohol, and it's been over 15 years. I've also held various top secret clearances. I've been right on to over 14 different projects that the United States military and the US government hold. I was also the #3 underneath Obama to approve foreign troops to be used in Syria, as well as a couple of additional things that has changed since I quit drinking. So I've been told that since I quit drinking, I've been nothing but a stellar performer. And
How long were you in the military?
20 years, sir. Retired Army,
And that was when?
2019.
So from the time these happened until 2019, you were in the military.
Yes, sir.
What have you been doing since you got out of the military?
I went to school and got a 4-year degree in a year for criminal justice at Tennessee State University. And then I applied at Dyersburg.
And no employment other than
Correct.
you're getting your pension from the Army.
That's correct, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Wagner. Any further questions? Commissioner Russell?
Mr. White, thank you for your service. So the last conviction was in June of 2007.
Yes, sir.
I think enough time's passed. I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Hearing none? Motion passes. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll go back to Claiborne County. Claiborne County, are you able to get your technical issues corrected?
Yes, we can hear now.
Oh, good. Thank you. Can you identify who you are, please?
I'm Benjamin Thomas Lake Evans.
Thank you. Can you, who's representing you there with the agency?
I have Sheriff Bob Brooks with me, as well as Assistant District Attorney Graham Wilson.
Good morning, Sheriff.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Can you go over a little bit with us of what you found in the pre-employment investigation and reference this Mr. Evans?
Yes. Mr. Evans is an exemplary officer. Never had any complaints. Really good with reports, answering calls. You know, he made a mistake 5 years ago. He was involved in a minor accident. Alcohol was involved. He's paid his dues. He's a really good man and a really good officer. I've known him his whole life. I know his grandpa and his father. They're good people, and I can assure you that incident will never happen again.
Okay, thank you, Sheriff. Is there any of the commissioners have any questions for the sheriff?
I've got one.
Commissioner Wright.
Sheriff, has he still been a part of your department doing something since you've been before the commission last time? I think we've heard this case once before, right?
Yes, he is twice before. He's works for the 5th District as a victim coordinator, advocate.
And since I had received a letter encouraging to keep up my in-service training and stuff like that, which I completed through V Academy, as well, to keep up my in-service as well. And like the sheriff said, I've been working since January of 2020 as a victims advocate, and was since promoted to the child victim advocate of a domestic violence shelter here in our county as well. And that's what I've been doing since January of 2020.
Commissioners, if you may not have it, but I have in front of me a letter from the District Attorney General of the 8th Judicial District endorsing this gentleman, and anybody would like to read it or see it, I'll pass it around.
It should be.
So you got it on your file, okay. Yes, sir.
Got a question. Mr. Evans, when were you before this board last?
I believe it was October of 2020.
Thank you.
If my memory serves me right, I think we had a question about your age last time. What's your age now?
I'm 30 now.
It was about time.
Time
from when it happened.
Time from when it happened. Age.
It's been 5 years since the incident occurred.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chairman, but I think the Attorney General's letter said it wouldn't prohibit him from testifying or something like that, wouldn't it? Something remarks.
That's my understanding, and along with that, we have somewhat of a petition sheet signed by multiple officers or deputies and detectives, from the sheriff to the chief deputy, from the Claiborne County Sheriff's Office. There's also New Tazewell Police Department, along with the Claiborne County District Attorney General's Office. And I'm counting everybody from the Assistant District Attorney General there down to the Victim Witness Coordinator.
But in the Attorney General's opinion, it wouldn't affect his testimony in a DUI case or anything like that.
That's my understanding.
Mr. Evans, have you taken any kind of alcohol rehabilitation classes?
I haven't taken any of those classes since our last meeting. Also, if you do have any questions for the District Attorney's Office, I do have Assistant District Attorney Graham Wilson here with us as well. But to the question of whether I took any classes or anything like that, I didn't feel as though it was necessary for it was a one-time incident. I don't drink at all. Like I said, since our last meeting, I've been married. I've had my firstborn child, and that happened 5 years ago. Is just, it's a different life from what I live now. And so, like the sheriff said, he assured you, and I can for sure assure you, that something like that will never happen again.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can we hear from the Attorney General? Assistant Attorney?
Yes, good. Thank you.
My name is Graham Wilson. I'm actually Assistant District Attorney that prosecuted Lake Evans 5 years ago. And I've kept in contact with Lake since then. seen what he's done in his life. And I think everybody here has seen that. And I've spoken with General Effer this morning, our elected district attorney, and he wants me to tell you that we actually did the letter that you have last time when we were in front of the post commission, but our feelings have not changed. We don't feel like Lake's DUI conviction in any way would prohibit him from arresting somebody for a DUI or prosecuting that DUI, because Lake took responsibility for what he did. He understood it was wrong, and he's been fighting every day since then to rectify that. And it's been 5 years. He now works as a victim advocate. We'd feel very comfortable putting Lake on the stand to prosecute any crime that he brings forward. And I would just point out, we prosecute people as well as everybody knows here in all walks of life. We've prosecuted lawyers in the process of doing that right now. They've been able to maintain their law license, continue practicing law with DUIs. Lake has paid his dues, and we would ask you and request you in the strongest possible terms to allow Lake to return to law enforcement, because we need good officers, as you all know. So I'm glad to answer any questions, but thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of the board?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Wright.
I'm sure that Mr. Evans is a super guy, and I think the last time the commission, it was pretty much the amount of time that has elapsed. And although there is no written amount of time, I think certain members of the commission have kind of a timeline, and that some stick to, and may vary between each. 5 years is a pretty short time in some aspects, and others it's pretty good while. My one comment I like to make is what us as a commission may open up of past denials will come back in front for past things if we might start something. That'd be my one I'd like to point out.
Yes, sir. Any other questions or discussion? Chair's looking for some type of movement on this matter.
For the sake of movement, I'm going to make a motion to approve. And I say that because of the way things are today. I know we're in dire straits, but if you're going to have a DA that's going to stand up in front of you, if you're going to do that, then just for the sake of getting it out there, I'm going to go ahead and approve.
Have a motion to approve. Is there a second to the motion?
I second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All in favor of motion to approve indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Birchfield, Commissioner Cherry, Commissioner Dunbar, Commissioner Green,
No.
Commissioner Forster,
No.
Commissioner Russell,
No.
Commissioner Spangler, Commissioner Wagner, Commissioner Wright,
No.
Commissioner Faulkner,
No.
and Chairman Parton.
Aye.
It is 5-4, sir. No.
Motion fails. Thank you. Moving on to,
Do we not, with the motion failing, do we not need to make a motion to deny the waiver? Because that was just a motion to approve. Sure.
We just not granting the waiver. It's just. Well, someone will take it.
yeah, that was what the motion was. I mean, just what was asked for was denied. Moving on to page 4. Waivers to attend another academy. We have none this month. Waiver of basic training, specialized substitutions for in-service training. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Post Assistant Director reviewed and administratively approved 12 post-transition school waivers and all corresponding supporting documents. The reported documents appear to be in order and meet or exceed the minimum standards set forth by the Peace Officer Standards of Training Requirements. In addition, Post Assistant Director reviewed and administratively approved 2 solo waivers requests based on the recently expired governor's orders. Due to the recent expiration of the orders, the Post Commission has approved for solo waiver requests to be administratively approved until the virtual post-transition school is completed.
Thank you. Any discussion on that? If not, moving on to administrative waivers. None to report this month. Waivers of the 6-month rule. See none there. Waivers of 8-month rule. None for this month. Waivers for medical rule. Murfreesboro Police Department.
Murfreesboro Police Department requests a medical waiver for Carly Page Jenkins, hired December 10, 2018. On August 13, 2021, Ms. Jenkins was placed on medical leave. Ms. Jenkins completed 39.5 hours of in-service training. However, Ms. Jenkins was not able to complete 4.5 hours of the mandated firearms in-service training for the 2021 calendar year. Murfreesboro Police Department is requesting Ms. Jenkins receive the annual 2021 salary supplement pay.
Murfreesboro Police Department, are you with us this morning?
Motion approved.
Second.
Is it firearm statutory?
Well, it's one of the statutory requirements.
That's what she.
Lieutenant Melanie Roche from Murfreesboro, GDI.
Thank you,
Sorry,
ma'am.
my button wouldn't unmute. I apologize.
We're looking at, give us a second. We're looking up the statute on this matter a little bit.
Okay.
So she just.
You can waive for medical condition, however, that would be the question of keeping her compliant, and may not be eligible for the base supplement. I'm looking at.
While we're waiting, can we ask, or can she volunteer what was it an issue with a hand or something to keep her from qualifying?
She was pregnant.
That would definitely do it. So the question is mandated.
Right, you're able to miss up to 10% of the class of service training. And that can be excused with the waiver for certain conditions of medical qualifying.
We're only talking about 4.5 hours.
That would unfortunately be the 10%.
By how much?
5 hours.
By half hour. That's why we got you around.
I'm trying to see the waiver for medical science. It's the pay that's concerning me. I think you could waive it for medical. You can have excused absence for 10%. That's not including the waiver. But mandated courses are required. Or something else. So the waiver would be able to keep her in compliance, but would not be able to be in pace on this, I'm afraid, is what I would. It would be the state, I think, the practice we have normally gone in the past.
Commissioners, do you understand what legal has explained is that she could be approved to stay in post certification but would not be eligible for the in-service stipend. Is that, any questions on that?
We just need to amend the motion.
We don't think.
We don't have a formal motion. There was an attempt, but it was
Yeah, we were
interjected.
just talking about 30 minutes that cost her. Money. I'm trying to make sure I read this correctly. EVOC, child sex, mental health. Each training shall be required. It's mandatory for the eligible be, this training is mandatory for the law enforcement officer to be eligible for the salary supplement authorized under 38A111. That's in the Rule D of the course curriculum requirement. So the waiver is appropriate for medication to maintain compliance, and she's not in violation of the 2-year requirement, but salary supplement would not.
But the request is for her salary supplement pay. Make a motion to deny.
Second.
Have a motion.
It says that she's not eligible on the agenda, so.
It's both. Can we amend it, Sheriff, to say that we approve the, what'd you say, Council?
Well, if you deny, you're gonna have a second motion if you go with the current motion on the table, because you're denying the request for the payment. Then we have a second motion to provide her to be eligible and compliant. That'd be okay. 2 votes.
So we need a second.
Russell second.
We still need a second motion.
Yeah.
I understand.
He seconded my motion.
He's second, Tom.
So I have a motion and a second on the particular waiver. Is any more discussion for understanding on that motion?
Salary.
I'm sorry, for the salary supplement. All in favor, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Now we need to address the matter to keep the officer in compliance.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mercersburg PD, do you understand what we just did?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just by statute, he's not going to be eligible for her salary supplement, but she is in good standing with her post certification.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes,
All
sir.
right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Waivers for military leave.
Post Assistant Director has reviewed and administratively approved 68 military waivers and corresponding supporting documents. All the reported documents appear to be in order and meet or exceed minimum standards set forth by the Peace Officer Standards and Training Requirements.
Any discussion on those matters? If not, moving on to applications for training officer.
Post investigators have reviewed and approved 2 applications for training officer, and they appear to meet the criteria for approval. The officer listed below will be informed that they have 1 year to complete the instructor development course or approved substitute.
Yeah, we have 2.
Christopher.
Yeah, Christopher John Falk, Rome State Community College Police Department. Any discussion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Applications for certified instructor.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? And for the record, the officer listed below, if any, is requested a waiver for 1 year training officer requirements to be Thomas Warren Thorpe, Henry Police Department. Have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor? Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Curriculum and test for specialized training.
Post investigators have reviewed and approved 129 in-service and specialized training classes this month, as they appear to be in order and meet or exceed minimum standards set forth by the Peace Officer Standards and Training Requirements. They've made note that these training offerings meet the post requirements for firearms, EVOC, mental illness, and CSA.
Thank you.
Make the motion approved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Motion carries. Old business, none to report. New business for discussion.
Metropolitan Nashville Law Enforcement Training Academy requests approval of their 2021 annual report.
Any discussion?
Motion approved.
Have a motion? And a second. All in favor? Motion carries.
Tennessee Highway Patrol Law Enforcement Training Academy requests approval of their 2021 annual report.
Motion approved.
Second.
All in favor? Motion carries.
Clifton Police Department requests the Post Commission's approval to forego post-transition school for Jeffrey D. Pointner. They are appearing.
Clifton Police Department. Are you with us this morning?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Yes, sir. Can you tell us who you are?
My name is Steve Wilson. I'm the Chief Criminal Investigator for the Clifton Police Department and the training officer.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Can you tell us a little bit about this officer's background and what you're asking for this morning?
Yes, sir. Specifically to the topic about requesting the waiver of transition, Officer Pointer, who's seated here next to me, Officer Pointer successfully completed the academy when he was working with Perry County in 2007. Mr. Pointer continued in law enforcement and came to the city of Clifton in May of 2008. Mr. Pointer remained a full-time law enforcement officer until July 31st of 2012. Mr. Pointer decided at that time to go part-time with us here at the city of Clifton. And he had another job in Nashville working some security details there and remained in law enforcement with us part-time until October of 2017. In the time that he remained part-time,
I think we lost connection right at the most important part he was fixing to tell us. How far out is?
He has some training from 2019 that he completed his in-service training.
Did he, that's what I was going to ask, if he did completed any in-service trainings while he was a part-time officer.
He did in 2019, but I don't know what he was gonna say, because he said in 2017.
We'll try to get them back on. Okay. We'll hold right there and move forward to Crossville Police Department.
Crossville Police Department, Keaton Brian Harthen was hired on May 3rd, 2021. However, Post did not receive the required paperwork until December 7th, 2021.
You have it now, and is it all in order? Okay. Any discussion in that matter since this has been added to the agenda? Director Mines is indicating that everything is all in order. Crossville Police Department, are you with us this morning?
Yes, I am. I'm Chief Brooks for the Crossville Police Department.
Good morning, Chief. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
It has been noted that all the paperwork is here and accounted for and everything is in order. Do you have any comments?
Well, just an apology. At the time, we had a part-time training officer, and since then we've rectified it, and we have a full-time officer that's just doing the training and keeping up with the post certification paperwork. Hopefully this won't happen again, but unfortunately, this is one of those things that slipped through the cracks, and we didn't catch it until December. So,
yes, sir. Any questions from the board?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve.
Second.
Have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
By chance, we had Clifton Police Department, you back with us?
Yes, sir. My apologies. We're having a bit of
Okay.
difficulty down here today.
You were getting right to the good part as this officer had worked part-time and you were fixing to state about what he had done with you during his part-time status with you.
Yes, sir. It carries just slightly further. The only time that Officer Pointer has not been in law enforcement as either part-time or full-time was October of 2017 to December of 2019. Everything previous to that, he at part-time, he completed all of his in-service and met and exceeded. Officer Pointer came back to us as a part-time officer on December the 4th, 2019, and has remained with us, completing in-service each year, all in service, all post-required in service. And he has now been hired full-time as of December the 6th, 2021. So the only in-service that he has not completed in law enforcement was from October 17 to December of 19.
So he's had current in-services from 19 until now.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Is it not within the 3 years?
It's full-time. That's the question with the matter is the difference of what you're going to recognize as what he's been part-time. And then there's an actual 2-year gap where he had nothing.
I just looked up the definition. The definition of break in service means any break in full-time law enforcement employment, including the mere change of employers for grandfathered officers, and any break in full-time law enforcement service for certified officers. So his break of service goes back to, what was it, 2012, I believe?
His last full-time employment was in 2012.
That's correct.
So if that's the case, would he not need to go actually through a full academy?
Is it over?
Because that's over the.
Well, December 21, we're in 2012, so I would say.
He's been full-time back since when, the 19?
December 2021.
But that was more than a 7-year break in service.
When did he leave in 2012?
I think I thought it was transition.
Oh, 7 years, yeah, we'll count 10 years. Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah.
I was going by the decade again still.
If it pleases the commission, just a reminder, the only time that Officer Pointer, he has a 9-year break from full-time service to full-time service. However, during his part-time status was 2 years and 48 days. Everything else, every year he completed his in-service, meeting or exceeding what post requirements for all officers here with the city of Clifton. The only in-service that he's not up to date on is for 2 years, and he's been in service ever since he come back. So he's done a running, continuing, just like all of us, full-time at his part-time status.
Where are the rules that discuss the break in service?
It's the definition.
Not in the 7 years versus.
It's under certification, chapter 2.
Okay, here, I found it.
It's under rule 3.
Beginning May 1, 2021, certified officers who have had more than a 3-year break, but less than a 7-year break in full-time law enforcement shall enroll in the commission approved 3-week transition school within 6 months of returning to full-time employment before their certification is reactivated. Officers with 7-year or longer break in full-time law enforcement service shall be required to re-attend basic law enforcement school. So if I'm not mistaken, he actually needs to go through a full academy because he was not full-time for that 7 years.
Any other questions or discussion?
It seems to be a matter we run into all the time. My memory serves me right, we have granted approval for part-time work as long as they did their academies. Did their mandate training. Is that not correct?
Yes, and we have approved some that didn't have near as much as this gentleman did, because this gentleman has attended in services and is state current, and also, about how many hours have you averaged working a week? Part-time?
20 hours a week.
So, he's above and beyond some that this board has approved, which I do know that,
And the request is forego transition school.
and my advice would be to attend transition school.
That would be my recommendation.
That sure would be a lot better than having to go back through 12 weeks of an academy after you've been working all these years as part-time and
And
doing
my
it in service.
understanding is it's remote now. Dexter,
Yes, I think there's only 3 days of
3 days mandatory and the rest of it.
mandatory appearance. Yes.
That would be my recommendation. I'll make a motion.
Have a motion or the request is to deny request for transition schools. So
It's
You do a second motion.
what I want to do is deny his request and then we'll go to second.
okay, have a motion to deny the request. Second. Have a second. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Then I'll make a recommendation that we, motion that we send him to transition.
Have a motion to request officer to attend the transition school. Any seconds?
Second.
Have a second. Any discussion?
In relation to the discussion, the rules specifically say he's supposed to go back to basic academy.
And I know, but he's, we've granted waivers in the past, like we said.
Which is a violation of the rules.
And this guy really, minus 2 years and some months there, he's done all this training. It's not like he had. So, granted, that's your opinion.
Well, we are obligated on this board to uphold the rules that were set by this.
Well, I made a motion that we go transition. See if it passes or fails.
Any further discussion? Have a motion and a second to attend transition school. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
One opposed that I hear. Motion carries. Do you understand, Clifton Police Department, what just transpired?
Yes, sir. If you don't mind, just a quick summation.
Okay. Your request has been denied to waive the transition school.
Yes, sir.
But he is going to have to attend transition school. That is done for the most part remotely now. In other words, he can sit in your department and attend the transition school via Zoom or whatever device they have set up. There's only about 3 days of that transition school that he will have to come to Donaldson. And I think that's for driving and shooting and an intoximeter test.
And that's in lieu of.
In lieu of going through 12-week basic academy again.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. Moving over to page 9.
Philip Lee Kemper requests the commission to review his previous determination of not being qualified to run for sheriff of Madison County, Tennessee. Mr. Kemper was not qualified as per TCA 8-8-102A3, which states be a qualified voter of the county and a resident of the county for 1 full year prior to the date of the qualifying deadline for running as a candidate of sheriff.
Is Mr. Kemper present?
Yes, sir.
Good morning. Good morning. Sum up to us what you've got going on, because I've got a big, thick packet in front of me.
Yes, sir. I appreciate the opportunity to speak this morning. This is probably one of the biggest situations in my law enforcement career. So I appreciate your time, attention, and consideration. Last Friday, I received an email from Mr. Mines advising me that I would be determined as not qualified per TCA 8810283, which states that you should be a qualified voter of the county and resident of the county for 1 full year prior to the date of qualifying deadline, which the qualifying deadline is February 16th. In the email that Mr. Mines sent me, he based this decision off of advice provided by Mr. Joseph Underwood from the legal counsel. I'd like to read Mr. Underwood's explanation. Mr. Kipper does not meet requirements of Tennessee Code Annotated 88102A3, and that he has not been a qualified voter of the county for 1 full year prior to the date of qualifying deadline for running as a candidate for sheriff. Voter registration card was issued in July 2021. Whether Mr. Kemper met the requirement that he has been a resident of the county for 1 year was unclear as to the date of purchasing property in Madison County was undetermined. However, he clearly was not a registered voter in Madison County in February 2021, evidenced by the issue on the date of his registration card. There's 2 issues here with this explanation that I would like to.
And I'll step in here. This is Mr. Underwood, and I will, when I've looked at the Attorney General report, he's not required to be a registered voter of the county. So I don't have to worry about you addressing the issue of a registered voter of the county.
I do appreciate that.
That is not a requirement. He would be a qualified voter, which would be determined to be a resident of the county for 1 year. So if we would address that issue of when you establish residency in the county, that will help clear up your application and we can move forward.
So that's one part of 2 issues.
Right. One part being the qualified voter. You're not required to be a registered voter to be a qualified voter.
Okay. What is exact proof of his 1 year of address in Madison County?
That was the good. It looks like he submitted some information of a contract, so a bill of sale, and but contracts to know when the purchase closing date of the property. And I'll let him explain what he has here.
If you could quickly, sir.
Yes. He said purchasing property. Now, I did purchase property in Madison County.
Purchasing or residing, you've got to have lived in Madison County. You have had to lay your head down. Is that correct? 1 year prior.
As part of my packet, I provided some affidavits.
Okay.
Timeline.
Okay.
I moved to Madison County on February the 12th of 2021, which tomorrow will be 1 year. And in my packet, I provided a rental receipt. I provided a receipt from a U-Haul rental truck that I rented on the 11th. And then I explained very thoroughly my move from Gibson County into Madison County, which took place on February the 12th. So I have been a resident of Madison County from February the 12th. I spent about 7 weeks renting a place at 88 Chamberlain Drive. Again, that documentation is in the packet. Then I purchased a property that's also in Madison County at 404 Fowler Road. Now, the date that I purchased that property is irrelevant because the relevant date is when did I establish residence in Madison County, which was on February the 12th. And I would submit to you that, when you look at election law and when you look at 22122, as far as how do you establish residence in order to become a qualified voter of the county. I would like to point out a couple of things. Section 2, a change of residence is generally made only by the act of removal joined with the intent to remain in another place. And there can only be one residence. When I moved from Gibson County into Madison County on February the 12th, my intent was to remain in Madison County. That's why I moved all of my property in Madison County. That's why I rented a house in Madison County. So I established residence on February the 12th. I purchased property in Madison County in March. But again, that's not the relevant date here. The relevant date is when did I establish a residence in Madison County. Again, it is a lengthy document, but that's because I tried to provide as much proof as possible so that I wouldn't have to stand here today. I would also point out in 22122, section 6, a person may be a resident of a place regardless of the nature of the person's habitation, whether house or apartment, mobile home, or public institution, owned or rented. If you look under Mr. Trey Hargett's website as far as residency in Tennessee, I rented a house. I put that proof in my packet, but I could have moved under a bridge in Madison County for that matter, as far as election residency status is concerned. I did provide the documents to prove my residence.
The handwritten receipt from James Kemper, who was that for? And who was,
I think that's my father.
and what was that receipt for?
For rent. February the 12th to the end of March.
You did a change of address for the post office.
Yes, sir, I did. That's also in the packet there. That change of address occurred on February the 13th.
And why is it dated March 31st?
I'm sorry.
The date on the receipt is March 31st. Generally rent paid in advance. What is the reason for almost 2 months?
Well, I didn't sign a lease with him, and I only lived there as long as it took me to transition after I purchased property. I sold the house in Gibson County. I had a contract on that house in January. I began moving out in January. I moved in at 88 Chamber on February the 12th. And I began looking for another property to purchase in Madison County, which I did do. So without renting or leasing somewhere else, I only paid for the time that I was there.
So do you have any document that actually shows that you rented that other than the receipt? Because the receipt doesn't mention anything about that.
I think it's checked rent.
Oh,
And there's affidavits from people that assisted me move, people that saw me live at that residence for that 6 or 7 week period. There's what I thought was ample information to.
Mr. Pepper, in regards to what we're talking about the receipt portion, is that your father's residence that you were at? He's not into renting property.
Again, the whole team explained that it's not the law.
Well, we treat it law in general. He gets attention late. It's not law, but it's good late.
But has that been in your tenure? Has that been an issue in the past 4 years ago or 8 years ago?
And that's, I think we have never enforced the registered voter in the last cycle.
So is that still on the Secretary of State's site, that is a prerequisite to qualify?
It's qualified voter. I mean, I would
When
recommend.
do
I
they think
recommend-
they take that off?
I mean, I recommend.
I went through 4 voter registration cards to make sure, because they changed all this.
Well, that was easy. That's what we went by. I was looking to see this, the state was a registration card. That's an easy way to establish residency.
That is, and it also, when you walk in and they stamp that, that's, these other things, I can get a receipt book and write out receipts.
You know, determine whether he qualifies.
I mean, we've got to come up with something that, this, that makes a defined without a shadow of a doubt. Video cameras or something, so I'm standing in front of a newspaper dated such and such, and I'm here, I'm sleeping in my home.
The voter registration card does have a date when they issued, so it's nice. to have.
Right. So when did you become a registered voter in Madison County?
July.
Of what year?
2021.
When did you decide to run for sheriff?
Well, I considered it in March and April timeframe.
Yeah, over a year ago?
This past March and April, it hasn't been quite a year.
Hadn't been quite a year. Did you do any research of what all the requirements was?
Just, my understanding is I've read the statute 88102 many times. I understand.
Was you still living in Gibson County when you decided to run for sheriff in Madison County?
No, sir. I moved to Gibson County on February the 12th. Now, I moved to Madison County on February the 12th. I didn't move to Madison County to run for sheriff. Moved to Madison County February the 12th, and then in about April, I decided to potentially run for sheriff.
Then you started your research of what it took to do that. You kind of see the position we get in with these situations when
well,
the staff, it's called established root, you know, kind of growing roots. You need to have some roots there.
Well, I've been working there for 18 years. So
are you an employee of the sheriff's office?
I'm employed by the Jackson Police Department.
Okay.
Mr. Kimber, what's the address on your driver's license?
404 Fowler Road, Peach Bluff, Tennessee.
And what county is that?
That's in Madison County.
And when you moved to Madison County, when did you change your driver's license?
I did not change my driver's license until I bought the property. Same way I didn't register to vote while I was staying at my dad's house for a couple of months in between.
You know what date's on your driver's license?
Issue date is 7/7/21, July 7th/21 by the state's of the state.
Okay, in the state of Tennessee, you've only got 10 days to change your driver's license from the time you move. You know that? So that would be 10 days prior to the date on his driver's license.
What was the date that you sold the house in Madison County? I'm sorry, Gibson County.
Contract was on January the 13th. The closing date was February the 19th. Once again, I would submit that a closing date or a purchase date is irrelevant as far as this issue is concerned. Is when did I establish my residence in Madison County, which I did on the 12th.
Mr. Kimber, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
How old is your daughter that moved in with you? Is it 20? So she wasn't in school or registered?
She goes online, half in person in Jackson State.
When did you change your address with the Jackson Police Department as a resident?
I do not recall that. It
would have been before February 12th. I didn't know you moved from Gibson County to Madison County.
Again, it's been almost a year.
But you are required to notify them on a change of address.
We have a policy in place to notify. I'm sure there's a time frame. In my list of things, notifying the police department, registering the vote, not what I was immediately trying to do. I was trying to secure residence and look for the property. Because again, February the 12th, I was not trying to make sure.
What about receipts for bills? Where were they mailed to the post office box when you changed?
Change of address with the U.S. Postal Service. That's included in the packet. So my mail came to ADA Chamber. You know, again, you asked if I had studied what was required to run for sheriff. I mean, yes, sir, I have. If I wasn't a high school graduate, if I wasn't of proper age, if I didn't pass a psychological evaluation, if I wasn't a certified officer, those are all things certainly that I could understand by statute. But this particular piece of the statute that I've been denied at least to this point, I meet the criteria. I'm a qualified voter of the county, and I moved and established my residence in Madison County on February 12th. I've lived in Madison County as my residence according to the statute 22122 ever since February the 12th, 2021. One of those things that Mr. Hargett and then also in the statute it mentions is where does your spouse stay, and the intent of moving. Again, I moved every piece of my property into Madison County. I slept in Madison County every night, except when I went out of town since February the 12th. My wife, my child moved into 88 Chamberlain with me on February 12th.
Where did you move your property?
My personal building, Midgard Storage, which is in Madison County, about 5 miles from the address.
When you moved on the 12th, did you move the property directly into that storage unit?
Yeah, well, I started moving during the month of January. Yes, it's about February the 13th, every bit of my property is out of this house. And if you've been storage or with me, they get changed.
So a question for legal, who has the burden of proof to establish residency? Does he have to show burden of proof to the post commission, or does somebody has to prove that he didn't?
No, it's up to the candidates to provide information if they meet the qualifications to, according to 8A102, you'll determine whether that is.
And the only thing that he's got is a rental receipt. And by state law, it should be his driver's license, because you're going to have 10 days to change it within the state of Tennessee.
We do use driver's license. We also sometimes, like I said, we try to use the voter registration cards because they have the date stamped on them. But the voter registration, there's an attorney general opinion on it, says you can't really say a qualified voter must be a registered voter. But we have used that as a date. If it's over the year, it's easy to say, okay, that's the thing. We take a lot of different things, and I let Assistant Director mine say he looks at bills, approved tax statements. We look at any kind of bills sent to the property, water, electric, whatever their name paid for by the date a year before the deadline, which is the 17th. The deadline is February the 17th to qualify.
And without any of those other documents, it seems to me like the only thing we've got to go by is his driver's license. It's been an official government document.
I would like to point out the statute 22122, the driver's license, when it comes to establishing residence, is not mentioned.
This is anytime you live in the state of Tennessee.
I understand what traffic laws say.
We're trying, Mr. Kemper, we're trying every way in the world. These board has been known in many, many years past to be more in favor of the potential candidate.
Right.
And what my question is that you are currently a policeman with the city of Jackson.
That's correct.
Okay, and is your police chief, your commander, is there somebody that you've brought with you that could give testimony to this board to help clarify of when you moved? When did you notify the HR department within the city of Jackson? Is there anybody?
I brought with me is my dad, who I live with.
I understand that, but he's kind of going to be a biased person.
Can I finish the question?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You asked a question, I'm trying to respond.
Yes, sir.
The chief of police that I worked under is also running for sheriff.
Okay.
So what I'm asking, I mean the statute, I'm asking for this board to allow the voters of Madison County to at least see my name on the ballot, because I meet the statute. I'm not having the election today. I'm just trying to follow the law and be on the ballot.
And we're trying to establish if you do meet those requirements for your name to be on that ballot.
I've got a commissioner talking about driver's license, but that's not in the law.
Well, I know, but we're trying to figure out what kind of legal document you have. You have a statement from your father is your best. Recommend is moving to a residency. I'm being honest with you. That's not the strongest evidence we have to go with. It's not, other candidates have provided much better information, much clearer situation. We didn't call this into question. That's why you're here today.
Does rental receipt mean less because?
A rental means you rent a property. It means you rented a storage. It doesn't mean you establish residency.
I'm not talking about the storage. I'm talking about my rental receipt.
Rental receipt with your father?
Yes. Does that mean less because it came from him?
I would think so, yes. I'll be honest with you. I mean, if I moved to my parents, I would expect them to give me a rental receipt unless I was trying to establish something. But it's kind of, I've got a 12-year-old. He doesn't have a rental receipt, but he lives with me.
Again,
but I'm just saying, it's just, that's not the strongest document.
I do appreciate that, but what you do and what I do are two different things. And again, neither are applied.
I agree. And I'm not saying it doesn't qualify. It's up to the commissioners here to make the determination whether they want to accept that as a legitimate rental thing. We've received people who provided property with a pole with it.
It's my understanding this is not the first time this issue has been before this commission. And my understanding, just by watching you here today, past precedent does play into it. Past precedent in this situation would allow me to be on the ballot.
Well, no, we've denied people for not having a residency.
Well,
and that's people who claim to be in the resident of county, and we've actually looked at the property, there's no house on the property. So that's,
I have 4 different sworn affidavits. These are not things I made up. These are people that will testify for me under oath in a court. That's why it was put in the packet.
it may come to that. I'm not saying.
It might.
It might. But I'm just saying, if the commission has an alternative to determine the record that you provide, that's why I want to say the voter requirement is not part of the issue. It's to determine whether you're a resident of Madison County.
That's correct.
As of February 17th of last year.
With the HR department at the city of Jackson has nothing to do with the police chief, which is for sure, I understand. But would the HR department not have documentation when you notified them of changing that?
Again, I couldn't answer that question because that was not one of the first things I did. I guarantee you.
When you were looking for documentation, wouldn't that be an easy thing to go ask for?
Well, again, in February, I wasn't looking to run for sheriff.
But you found these affidavits, I'm just wondering why you couldn't go to HR and ask them.
I don't remember the dates that I notified them.
If they would document it.
Well, I suppose they would.
Reason I asked that, Mr. Kemper, with all due respect, sir, is because I value my paycheck I get for being sheriff. I know you value your paycheck you get as a police officer. That's something you don't want to miss. And generally, one of the first things that happens, even before you get a voter registration card, is that you notify your employer, hey, I've changed the address. I don't want my direct deposit address or my check address to go. And that was, I'm trying to help you validate that. And I understand your interpretation of the law may be different than our interpretation of the law. And it may have to go to a further court to get established, because we're learning here today from our own state attorney general that there's something on the Secretary of State's website of our requirements. There's 2 sheriffs that sit on this board that voter registration. And I thought that would have been a key thing, but now we have an interpretation from our state attorney general that loosens things up. So that's the reason I asked that.
Again, the reason my packet was so thick is because I tried to put every bit of information in. And again, if you would take time to read those affidavits and look at February the 12th, because there was a snowstorm. I mean, I didn't put the weather in this packet.
Mr. Kemper, do you have a drive home patrol car from Jackson?
Yes.
And does it have a GPS on it?
I'm assuming that it does. Most of our cars have GPS. And I'm in administration. I don't know if every bit it was have a GPS or not. I can't answer that.
We can ask Jackson if they got a GPS on the car.
That's left up to him, not us.
Yeah.
But again, I tried to put my proof in.
I'm just making that comment.
Mr. Chairman, we're gonna hear Assistant Chief Jeff McCoy helped you move out. That's finally facing the David Furniture. When I read his affidavit, it says he moved into a lesser state of Maryland, which is Gibson County, into storage. But it says to his understanding, so he didn't physically help you move anything to your father, but
Not that I recall. He helped me move to the storage unit I donated some of my money.
anyone in here, without me going, because I've been reading through them during this whole time, that is non-family related,
Danny Laughlin.
that helped you move something into your father's residence?
Wife and brother, who wants to move into Jeff McCoy is the only one outside of my family that helped me physically pick anything up. Danny Laughlin is a neighbor. Just next door. Same address. He saw my vehicles, my wife's vehicles every day, coming and going. He was one testifying for us.
And I could see that too, though, with being at a family member residence, that could be normal behavior anyway. You have to say our side of, our side of it as well.
But again, from the law, there's no reference to, you can move anywhere in the county but in with your family.
You're correct. So that's where we need something else that gives us clear cut evidence that happened.
I'm gonna make a motion that we affirm the disqualification.
Second. A motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing no discussion. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Moving on, Thomas W. Thorpe.
Thomas Warren Tharp requests the commission to review his previous determination of not being qualified to run for sheriff of Decatur County, Tennessee. Mr. Tharp was not qualified as per TCA 8-8-102A9A, which states, except as provided in subdivision A9B, have at least 3 years of full-time experience as a post-commissioned certified law enforcement officer in the previous 10 years, or at least 3 years of full-time experience as a state or federal certified law enforcement officer with training equivalent to that required by the post-commission in the previous 10 years, provided that any person holding the office of sheriff on May 30th, 2011 shall be deemed to have met the requirements of this subdivision A9.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Mr. Tharp. Go over us with this board, what your situation is, please, sir.
Okay. Thank you guys for letting me appear for you today. I'm gonna try to expedite this. I've got an email, just as the gentleman before me from Director Mimes. And it basically said I didn't meet the 3 years of the last 10 years. I think he talked to Ms. Kim Cooper, Ms. Cooper, the chief counsel for law enforcement here. And she indicated through an email correspondence, the commission will need to determine whether your KBOS law enforcement security officer training qualifies as equivalent duties as that of a local law enforcement. So that's the question that's in front of us today. So I basically just laid my case out like I was going to court. All right. A LESO, or law enforcement security officer, it's a position that I held while I was in Kuwait, working in support of the Department of Defense. I worked for the ASG KU Police Department, which is ran by the Provost Marshal, which in the military or civilian sector, that'd be equivalent to a chief of police. All right. A few things that or background on this position, it required a post certificate to get, and I had to have less than a 5-year break in service. Okay, my post certificate came from the state of Tennessee. So they took my post certificate, and from there, I did an additional 144 hours, 2 weeks of training. We did specialized training, stuff that the Provost Marshal's office wanted us to have. That included EVOC, handcuffing, first aid, defensive tactics, various forms used by the military police, crowd control, and community policing was a big one. Just to point out some of my duties and responsibilities that I did. I patrol in a fully marked police unit. I have pictures available if anybody wants to see those. I issue tickets. We call those in the military, or those are called DD 1408, equivalent to a traffic citation here. I responded to fire and EMS calls, responded to suspected criminal activity, worked with the military police investigator on complex investigation, more complex investigation. I worked with the Army CID. I responded to suicides and other mental health calls, and we did cash deposit escorts. All right. Some of the reports I completed were death reports, assault reports, collision reports, identity theft reports, and loss of military equipment. We were required to have a certification of compliance. We did have our own training division while we were over there. A few things we were required to do as law enforcement support officers. we're required to qualify twice a year with our firearms, with our 9mm and our AR-15. We're required once a year to pass a 1.5 mile run, push-up, and setups yearly. We're required yearly to maintain our body max index. Again, that was checked yearly. We were required to pass a 100 question exam proctor, and that was yearly. And I maintained a U.S. government secret clearance in order to have access to alerts. And if anybody's not familiar with the alert, it's the Army Law Enforcement Reporting and Tracking System. It's only used by law enforcement. They're the only ones that have access to it. To finish it up, I will tell you some of the compelling factors you should consider. I do have my original certificate as a number, just as I would have one with post. I did enter reports into the law enforcement tracking system. And if anybody ever wanted to check those, you can see any reports I entered with theft, assault, or whatever. At the very end, it says patrolman, star. Force marshal is equivalent to chief of police. I don't think anybody's denying that. My certificate of compliance exceeds those of Tennessee Post. And another thing is that we didn't get the waivers. If you didn't meet the standard, the first time you were put on leave, administrative leave. So if I failed to qualify on the range, at the end of that day, my firearm was taken away from me and I was on leave. I had 1 week to basically readjust myself and get ready. The second time, if you didn't qualify, again, this was any of the mandatory things, you were let go. There was no waivers. So I would say that's equivalent, and I'd say it exceeds. And I laid it out like I was going to court. That's pretty much it. I think I've given a pretty compelling argument here.
Thank you. Any questions of the commission?
Did you have arrest authority?
I did, from the ASGKU commander.
I've got a question about the number of hours for the training.
Yes.
How many hours was that training?
For this one?
The one you provided?
Yes, 144. It's sort of like y'all's post-transition school. I can come from Alabama, you will accept my training, and then I'll do 144 hours, the exact same.
Don't have a copy of it.
No, sir. Again, that's only 144 hours of stuff they wanted you, like, there was some stuff they didn't like that civilian did. Let's just be honest with you. So they changed it.
Mr. Stark, thank you for your service. I do have a question. Was you a federally certified law enforcement
No, sir.
officer?
No, sir.
That's all I had.
I did bring a press release, or not, and it was a DOD task order, Department of Defense, and it does strictly state that services provided is police administration and law enforcement. And I also would like to add, law enforcement was not the only service. EMS, fire, in general, they like civilians, but we do it better.
Thank you. Any other questions? I would refer to legal. Legal in the past, under these military contractors, whether it's under the UN or under Department of Defense, it's my understanding that those have not been accepted as time that is recognized by the state of Tennessee for qualifying.
Yeah, I've seen some denied, yes, sir. I've seen denied. I can't say it would, but this commission chooses to do. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I noticed on here on the what form is it? Oh, it says PSID. He's got a PSID number.
He's got PSID because he had to go through transition. He's the chief of interim currently. But the time since he's been back to current, is that time he needs the time that he served overseas if he's gonna make that 3 and 10.
So once they meet the date they certify the application, we count 10 years back from that point, find out the 3 and 10 years.
So how much time does he have right now?
It's 2 years and unless he's given credit for his time, right, then he would have the 3 years, but now it's 2 years, 7 months and 12 days, is that correct? So I'm seeing it correctly.
That certification you received, let me look into that, government, that's not private.
That might be.
It's a private company that contracted with the government. That's all in here.
So he's just missed
I want to make sure, I was reading a different date. I want to make sure we get the right time. 2 years, 9 months, 6 days. So what I got here on note. 2 years, 9 months, 6 days. So he's missing 3 months, unless he's giving credit for the service.
And I would like to point out, my service is a little bit different than working for the community and anything else like that. I've done that before. I actually have time as a military contractor supporting the police in Afghanistan, where I didn't have arrest powers. I was there strictly for training. That's not the case with this. I have full arrest powers. Again, I mean, we have police uniform, police vehicles. We have roll call with the military police. We all work together. So you can't compare. Those are completely different. And I understand because I've done both of them.
Just to run this by, you, one of the issues that I potentially see is this, it seems like the statute wants it to be at least government certified experience. I don't see a provision necessarily for civilian certified experience. What do you think?
Well, this is all under military.
Right, but he said the certifications from a private organization.
Which a lot of private organizations come in and do military training as well.
Have you ever served in the military?
Yes, sir.
What branch?
I was in the Army, deployed to Iraq, way back when. I was a young guy, so I'll do it now, but.
Yeah, your honorable discharge is in the paperwork.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Basically, it is the will of the commission if you determine to accept this as meaning the equivalency, I guess, of law enforcement and which is a local law enforcement for other officers.
And according to the email, that's exactly what I set out to prove today. It's equivalent to local law enforcement.
Sir, do you have any of your syllabus that breaks down your hours or training records? Do you have?
No, sir,
I mean, we're just going by one little old piece of paper you got here today.
I strictly get that. The commission.
And when somebody, I don't mean to interrupt you because I got scolded a minute ago, but to finish that, when somebody transfers from Florida or Alabama or another state here to Tennessee, they bring us, we have a breakdown, sometimes especially out of Florida. They have sometimes more hours, but it doesn't, there's some things that they don't have that we require. But we don't, I mean, they bring us their whole thick packet book of what their breakdown was.
I totally understand what you're saying. I respect that, but I would ask you to consider this. The only reason I was able to get that position is because I already had 400 hours of post-certified time. It wasn't the time I got from the 144 hours that got me the job. So I guess the easy way is to look at this. If I was an officer in Tennessee, transferred to Kentucky for a year and a half, transferred back to Tennessee, would you be asking me for my Kentucky time or training? It's probably not.
If you were over the break that's required, yes.
Yeah, but I'm not over the break. 10 years. It's different. We're going back 10 years.
Three full-time years within the last 10.
Yes, sir.
And you're 2.9 out.
Does he not currently have a post certification?
He does.
That's what he has at 2.9.
What kind of paperwork did he submit then? That's from 2 years ago. Almost.
Yes, sir.
Was his breakdown on his training and all that?
On which training, sir?
Well, like when they come from another state, they have to submit all the training.
He was already Tennessee certified, so we didn't have to have that. We already got that syllabus on file.
And that's the point I'm trying to make now.
And I would address the board from my knowledge. Commissioner Foster Forster may be able to follow up with that, but this type of subcontracting service overseas or through the UN, whether it has not been accepted to fill in the gap of the 3 full years of the last 10 and with the prior commission.
But did he get, well, I guess what I'm trying to think of, did he get credit for that time? He was already certified as a police officer, then he went overseas.
Correct.
And he came back and recertified.
We looked at him as a break when he comes back. Then if he's under, depending upon when he came back, whether we were in the 3,
Well, 3 years ago,
7,
that
or the
was-
5 and 10,
That's 5 and
we
10.
look at it from that standpoint.
Did you have to go through transition school when you came back?
Yes.
Right. And
Which
that's
was-
happened.
I guess another way to look at it, if I'd been over the 7 years, and then you go back to the whole academy, would you accept it?
You wouldn't
No, because
qualify,
it would
but
be 3
you still
years.
wouldn't. You'd still got, say, this is under, this is confusing. What the argument it is that you have not had 3 full-time years of Tennessee law enforcement service,
Yes, sir.
post-certified, within the last 10 years to qualify under the Secretary of State's or under the state law
Yes, sir.
to go on the ballot.
Yes, sir.
We're not saying you're not post-certified.
Correct.
We're not saying you're not qualified.
We're not saying you're not
Qualified
qualified.
law enforcement
Law
officer.
enforcement officer.
Right.
And that date was from.
We're just trying to determine whether your experience abroad is equivalent to a state or federal certified law enforcement officer.
What's your opinion?
I don't, like I said, I'm not the police officer, I'm not my duties, but I don't. I don't want to, if he was a lawyer in a different county, state, I may weigh in, but I don't know. What the duties of law enforcement abroad versus law enforcement locally. So sometimes we're in chaotic times locally too.
So how long were you overseas?
I've done that for, was it over 8 years? I didn't start out in that position. I went over there doing security and the position came open. We applied for it. I didn't think I'd get it, to be honest with you. And they're.
So you were over there for just about a year. What were you doing with all the other time?
Yeah, what was the rest of it? That's what I was going to ask. What were you doing after you came back?
From over here?
Yeah,
From Kuwait? Oh, I went back again to Afghanistan as a private contractor. I did biometric security and CI screens.
I have a question about your employment. Do you have anything that references what your duties were? You were employed as a police officer over there. Do you have anything that documents that your contracted work was to provide law enforcement services? Do you have any-
I don't have one. I did talk to my supervisor. He's in Colorado right now, going to the highway patrol school. He's more than welcome to appear before the post commission. I think he said that he's probably out of training right now, but he actually had his contract that referenced exactly where our duties are. Again, I go back to tip. I mean, there's no way I'd be able to allow to enter information into an Army law enforcement tracking system if I wasn't law enforcement. It just doesn't happen.
I just wondered if you had a contract.
Yeah, I understand, sir. I don't have it on me. And if the post commission chooses to pass this and give me time to get more information, I mean, I'm fine with that. I can understand why you want more information. But again, like I said, I laid it out like I was going to court. I also have one of my other coworkers, we went to actually transitional school together. He said that he's willing to also appear before the post commission. He works for Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. And I have one of my friends that works for Columbus Police Department. All of them got police officer job when they got back. And all of them are willing to appear before the commission soon. If we want to set it up for next month or something like that.
We got to do this by next week is the deadline.
It still boils down to whether we approve this type work and training as normal.
It's not been approved in times past.
Yeah, I'm going to say we make a motion that we affirm the original decision. Because if this was for transition school and the law enforcement job, I would vote to accept that.
You have a motion?
To affirm the
Motion to affirm the disqualification.
Is that really?
Second,
I'll second it.
have a second. Discussion. Hearing no discussion, all in favor of said motion, indicate by saying aye. Opposed,
I'll be a no.
have one opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Moving on, Christopher Donald Boyd.
Christopher Donald Boyd requests the commission to review his previous determination of not being qualified to run for sheriff of Grundy County, Tennessee. Mr. Boyd was not qualified as per TCA 88102A9A, which states except as provided in subdivision A9B, have at least 3 years of full-time experience to post commission certified law enforcement officer in the previous 10 years, or at least 3 years of full-time experience as a state or federal certified law enforcement officer with training equivalent to that required by the post commission in the previous 10 years, provided that any person holding the office of sheriff on May 30th, 2011 shall be deemed to have met the requirements of this subdivision A9.
Good morning. Are you Mr. Boyd?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Boyd, explain to us what brings you here today.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. Promise I won't take long. Reason I'm here is I've been out of law enforcement since 2014, September 2014. Like years, 7 months, 17 days or something like that. What time that I didn't realize it was a 7-year thing. You know, when I started out, you know, they changed. I know it was 10 years, but one time I didn't realize they had changed.
What have you been doing?
I've been, well, actually, I worked in construction, project group, but I've been a constable since 2014. I mean, I know y'all don't recognize constables. I just like, you know, maybe y'all could consider, you know, I've been here 4 years in service every year since 2014.
And Mr. Boyd, I appreciate your sincerity, and appreciate your interest in what you're trying to do. It's, as you've said, I guess you've sat through these other two, and,
Yes.
and you kind of have gotten an understanding of where this is at. And this situation, Mr. Boyd, is a little different. When you're trying to qualify for the high office, it's different than if you're trying to get back in to be a line officer. And these qualifications are very serious, and the laws are pretty direct on that. Now, this board does have authorities to waive things. But when you're trying to be the chief administrator, that carries a big burden, because you're dealing, running for the office of sheriff, you're dealing with jails and inmates, and there's a lot of contingencies there. But anyway, any questions of Mr. Boyd from the members of the board?
Mr. Boyd, I just wanted to say thank you for your service as a law enforcement officer. I agree with everything that Chairman Martin said. And with that being the case, I'll make the motion that we honor the first request to deny his membership.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
So is the motion to approve the request?
Deny his run for sheriff, so I guess.
Deny the waiver.
This, thing on the-
Deny the waiver. Is that what you understand, Commissioner Russell? Have a motion and a second to deny the waiver. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Mr. Boyd, thank you for being here today.
Thank y'all too.
Thank you, sir.
Another thing, would there be any way I might get back into law enforcement?
Absolutely. If you want to get with Director Mines, and they would look and see what your time is, you may, I don't know if you're going to qualify for transition skill. The rules changed this last July from 5 and 10 to 3 and 7, but it's different with the sheriff's qualification to get on the ballot of the 3 full-time within 10. And
I have a police department saying that they will do all that for me and try to get me back in.
okay. Yeah.
If you're breaking service of when you left full-time law enforcement.
Yes.
It's not more than 7 years, then you're eligible for a transition school if you get hired before that date runs. If it runs after that day, you gotta go back to the full academy. That's
I go back to
right. Okay. Well, look in your, check with the cadence for the situation when you're breaking service.
You can just reach out to me. We'll have a conversation.
Okay. Thanks, Secretary. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. That said, want to turn this over quickly to the executive secretary.
We'll make this quick, I promise. We've got dates and a memo for informal hearings and commission meetings. I know that we had a commission meeting, I believe, scheduled on Good Friday.
Yes, sir.
And so Assistant Director Mines has gone through and assured me that there are no more holidays that the post commission will be scheduled to meet on. So I don't know if we need a.
Well,
vote to approve the
there is an
schedule, but-
issue though. The legal has come with a problem yesterday afternoon late, so we have not informed the director, unfortunately. The deadline for the sheriff qualifications, those with the primary, is the 17th, which is Thursday, the 17th, February. There's a requirement, there's a statute providing that challenges can be made within 3 days of that qualifying deadline to that. And if challenges are received or may be submitted to the post commission in writing by the noon of the Sunday, the 20th. So we count the 3 days as. And at that point, the commission will need to review any of those challenges and notify the election commission prior to the 7 days following the qualifying deadline. What all this means is what I'm saying is we're going to need to meet on either the 22nd or 23rd of February if we receive any challenges to people who we have certified. You've only heard of the 3 we denied straight out today. There was no question that we wanted to bring to you, who wanted to appear before you. There were 140 other candidates, Director.
144.
144 other candidates we qualified. I'm not saying there won't be any challenges to those, but we will receive paperwork by the deadline is the 20th. And so therefore, I would recommend we schedule a meeting, either the 22nd or 23rd, just in case that we do receive a challenge. Now, today, with the gentleman we denied, they're not able to challenge it. This is somebody opposing someone being qualified on the ballot. These gentlemen who are denied, they could take their case to Chancery Court, and that matter would be heard exponentially, and then they could be placed on the ballot according to Chancery Court hearing. This would be just if someone files paperwork to qualify someone we have qualified that they did not believe we should have qualified, and we would review their packet kind of like we did today and determine whether we made a mistake or not, or whether we'd certify and notify them. So.
And without naming names, I would point out that we've already received questions about at least 2 people. So it very likely could happen that we have to have a meeting.
So you want to set a date? What's everybody's calendars look like for the 22nd or the 23rd?
We'd have to respond to the county commission whenever it's by the noon of the 24th. So I'd like it to be a little more time if possible, the 22nd.
Tuesday and a Wednesday.
Or Wednesday, whatever's better for the commissioner.
22nd is better for me.
I'm open both.
Open vote. Mr. Bob,
Yeah, I can do that.
Mr. Forrester.
23rd would be better.
I'm retired, I don't care.
Don't have to wind up using.
I need 8. That's what I need. We need 8 members.
I'm going to do today.
I am too. So
I'll be in session.
I can make it the 23rd. It's better, 22nd.
What time on 22nd?
That's up to y'all, whatever's convenient for y'all. It's your pleasure.
is morning better than afternoons? Generally morning. So
1 o'clock would keep, maybe we had to come up the night before.
yeah, that would save the state some money. We appreciate that.
But it doesn't matter.
But it may go on late. We don't have any complaints or oppositions we get. You maybe stay until 5 o'clock or 6.
If y'all do later on the 22nd like that, I could do anytime 2 or after.
What about later on the 23rd? That hurts you on a committee meeting or something?
I've got a 3:30.
Later, the 22nd, it's been proposed.
I could do like 2 p.m. on 22nd.
And it may not happen.
And it may not happen. It may, hopefully it does.
I'm good for whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I
Especially,
don't think-
especially for.
it's important, I'll make it.
It is, and I don't anticipate, this is the one with the primary and the challenges. Another one without primary is just the April verification. And we can talk about that date, and I have that, and we can discuss, look at that, is that deadline is the first Thursday in April, which happens to be the 7th. So we would need to meet either April, instead, because the 14th and 15th is Good Friday, we probably want to meet the 12th and the 13th that week. Just move it up that day, and we wouldn't have to have an extra session. We'd just be able to fit everything in. And you could still be required to those challenges or so forth to accommodate that.
So were we looking like 1 o'clock, the 22nd?
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock, the 22nd?
Perfect. That would work for you all.
All in favor? Good.
February 22nd, 2022 at 2 o'clock.
Dot.
And if you don't mind, the math staff send us a email reminder on that.
We'll be posting this too.
Things are getting kind of,
That's what.
thank you.
And then the April, we need to talk about that.
April day.
The April day, because that is, the Good Friday is the 15th. And so that's why I was suggesting maybe have it 12th, 13th. Not knowing that the deadline is still the 7th, there may be an extra April meeting. I don't
Maybe we
anticipate.
get it all in.
We
on
may
that
have to get-
one day.
We may hear denials and appeals and everything at the same
So
time.
what day we're talking?
12th to 13th, whatever's commissioners.
If you want to move it to the 13th, because I have people scheduled for informals on the 14th, just flip one before the other.
Did we get time and a half for Good Friday?
So April the 13th is the meeting then. Is that right?
I believe that's Thursday, the informal, and then
April the
the 14th will be
14th.
The full meeting will be the 13th and the formal will be on the 14th. Still.
we're gonna kind of do a reverse.
Right, yeah, not change the informal the 14th, that Thursday afternoon.
And so far, that's just one.
I've got 3 so far for that Thursday.
It's also TSA.
Do we need to remember, we can move it, I mean,
Can we move the meeting to the morning of the 14th?
we can do it all on the 13th if you want.
Or do it all on the,
Do it on the 14th?
13th.
What is?
He's already got people coming up.
Oh.
That's why.
THCP meet the same days too,
Then I don't mean that.
13th.
Do you want me to say what?
Oh, I know. She'll miss you.
Oh, yeah.
We're on the board, so we'd have to be at the board meeting.
We're not gonna have members at the 14th.
and we could consolidate this stuff with help, is what I'm saying. Everybody.
I mean, you could have it there, but they would have to be other meetings.
I was just gonna ask if we could actually hold the commission meeting at the TSA venue.
Why not?
What do you mean? Hurry in? What day is it?
13th is a Wednesday.
Wednesday, yeah, that's.
We need to meet before the 14th for that because the Wednesday noon is the deadline to reply. That's why I'm saying the 13th for one part for the committee meeting, but the informal 14th. So
Is Wednesday just? You do Wednesday. Is that
The 13th.
13th?
The 13th.
Is it morning or? Just,
The next idea, if your main staff can coordinate that. Yeah. That's so far.
so it'll be the 13th at 9:30, April. Is that right?
That's whatever the wishes are.
I say that'd be definitely the formal.
Can you look into that in the jury?
That's one question, you get 15 answers.
Yeah,
You ain't got but two and they mess up the one car
I
parade.
know.
Well, this is what we're moving to different parts. So we'll have the full commission meeting, the formal commission meeting on the Wednesday, the 13th, Wednesday, April the 13th at 9:30 here. The 14th will be it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
14th will be it. So we can maybe move the informal to be there.
That'd be great.
That's what we need members to appear.
Okay,
The
so
14th, keep it the date, change location with our people.
we're the 13th.
13th is here.
13th is here in this room
Formal here, 14th is
At 9:30.
at 9:30.
Okay. And then the
14th
informals is the
One
14th.
person make the final announcement, okay?
Go ahead, Joseph.
I think,
Or Greg.
No. Okay, so I'm asking, so on the 13th at 9:30, we're doing our commission meeting here.
Yeah.
And then on the 14th at 1 PM, we're doing the informal at the jury and then Franklin.
Somebody have to watch.
And we have to get set up for that.
If the Sheriff's Association would have us.
I think we can force feed that.
and the reason we're doing that is because he had people already scheduled for the 14th to appear here. Maybe easier for us to change the location to accommodate y'all than just to cancel the whole move and the date for everything to appear a different day.
We can,
Figure that out.
since that is a smaller committee, we can fit that into a room there. So we're just reach out to Executive Director Bledsoe.
It's still taking all that stuff.
We'll.
Are we capable of doing that?
Yeah, we've moved before. What about the later in the year for the DA's conference and all that stuff?
I don't know the dates of that yet.
Are we planning on having a November meeting again, as usual?
Well, normally the director tells us that, but
Hey,
but we'll talk about it. We'll have it.
Tradition's always important.
Still recording.
You know, the
Are we
rentals,
still recording?
usually we go up there during the GDI. If it works out quite well.
Are we done with official?
Are you fine with the dates? Or you have any other issues with all?
I just think I would go off before.
Well, do you have any questions with the dates? I just want to make sure we don't, because that's gonna be part of the rest.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Wait, now we gotta do it.
Wait.